So let's get into it now with a former House Speaker, Newt Gingrich, now a Fox News political analyst and author of the brand new book, Beyond Biden, Rebuilding the America We Love. That title is right on time, and we'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, because this is part of it, right? It's so great to have you in focus today. Out of the breaking news, your top line thoughts with what Senator Paul is trying to get to there.
Well, I think in any reasonable society, Fauci would be gone. He's violated his own rules. He wrote a paper on this back about 2012, talking about dangerous research and what standards ought to be set, and admitting that in the end, this was more than a scientific question, because dangerous research was a threat to the whole society. I've known Fauci since he did brilliant work on HIV/AIDS in the 1980s. And I'm sad to say it, but I think he now is destructive. I think he is dishonest. I think he is trying to save his reputation. And he's doing so at very substantial risk to lives around the planet. And it's very unfortunate. And they go through this same conversation every time.
It seems like it.
And Fauci hides behind word games. The fact is that they were running experiments. The very notion that he trusted the Chinese, when you know that the Chinese dictatorship was literally locking up doctors who didn't do what it told them to. And you go back and you look at the origins of this, the effort by the Chinese dictatorship to cover it up for the first two or three months. The fact that Fauci could say, I trust them, by itself is an indictment of naivete.
You know, it's interesting because you go back to the words the same way that Senator Rand Paul does. He's like, are you trying to redefine now for all of us, like we're children and we don't have a Webster's, I guess, or the internet speaker, the definition of gain of function, which is not a new science. So you don't have to spend all that taxpayer money to figure out what it is. Well,
and you have to ask yourself the question, given the degree to which China is still clearly a totalitarian society in which the dictator, Xi, defines reality, why would the U.S. taxpayers be funding research in a Chinese laboratory? Now, the answer is, well, South Asia, and particularly South China, is a major center of these kind of diseases. Well, I would much rather have the bats brought to the U.S. or to Taiwan or to Japan or to Singapore. But the idea that we're going to send money to Wuhan in order for Chinese scientists under the control of the Chinese secret police, that we're then going to trust, not have people there. By the way, when it did break out, they wouldn't let us come in.
Right.
So they wouldn't even let us look at the research we were paying for.
Well, they had scientists who were in that lab who were getting sick and dying.
Right.
I mean, we didn't know that at the time. We didn't find that out until later. But there was a lot happening in the lab.
But Fauci behaves as though all of this is not reality. So it's as though there's not a Chinese dictatorship. It's as though scientists didn't die. And it's unfortunate because he is probably the most prominent spokesperson on these kind of diseases in the world. And the fact that he's now completely defending his reputation at the cost of the people, not just in the United States, but worldwide, is really tragic, and someday historians will write about it.
You know, you lay it out with your experience, having known him and also knowing so much about our enemy, China, and let's just call it what it is, because a friend would not have kept us out like that. They would have partnered with us on finding a vaccine, on doing the right things in the beginning. But it's almost like Fauci is acting as though, and we know it's true, he doesn't have to say much because it's all unknowable now.
Right.
We can't get in, and the Chinese have done whatever they're going to, the Chinese government, forgive me, have done whatever it's going to do, and it might be impossible to get all of those answers in a more contemporaneous
Which would lead you to be a little more cautious and maybe a little more humble.
You'd think.
You know, I did a podcast with Dr. Fauci in February of 2020, when this was just starting. And it's really interesting to go back and listen to it now, because in February, he was pretty passive. This is probably not going to be a pandemic. It's probably not going to be a crisis. I think we're going
And that's code for he was wrong.
And it's in his own words. It's not me. It's his voice.
I want to get to your new book, Beyond Biden, Rebuilding the America We Love. It's available now online or in a real live bookstore. Just walk right in. I'm still shopping old school with my kids for books. Tell us about this one.
Well, we deliberately decided not to write an anti-Biden book on the grounds that Biden would be sufficiently anti himself, that's not an issue.
Oh, that's interesting.
What we wanted to do was say, this is going to be a mess. We have really big things. And I think, by the way, the Youngkin, his campaign really fits almost exactly what Beyond Biden talks about, because he talked about fixing the schools. He talked about creating jobs. He talked about doing things to bring down crime. So he was talking in the real world about real change. And that's what I think we need to recognize. If we don't go through profound modernization, we are not going to be competitive with China. And we are going to lose.
Do you think Biden can
in
get
our
that
lifetime.
done?
Oh, I don't think Biden has a clue. I think Joe Biden is a nice, pleasant guy who is totally out of touch with reality, surrounded by left-wing staffers who live in a fantasy world. I always tell people to understand their attitude towards threats, whether it's terrorism or it's China. Imagine that they saw The Lion King and thought it was a documentary, and they actually believe lions and zebras dance and sing together.
Oh, wow.
You know, I mean, that's how they behave. They don't understand. We're in a life and death struggle with a Chinese dictatorship which would like to dominate our society, which has hundreds, if not thousands, of agents in our society, which has a methodical strategy of both stealing our intellectual property and bribing our scientists. And
lying to us and
lying to us all the time,
obfuscating
yeah.
at the start of a deadly pandemic.
Right.
There's just so much of it. I don't know when you started to think about this, but it's only been 10 months.
Right after the election, we sat down.
So it's amazing how much of what you're talking about is what we're experiencing.
The great tragedy is that big government socialism doesn't work. It didn't work in Zimbabwe. It doesn't work in Venezuela.
Irrespective of Biden being in
and
the
so
White House.
I was willing to, once you knew who was going to dominate, and it was clear that Biden, he gave a very nice inaugural address about coming together, et cetera. And the same day, he signed a whole series of executive orders dismantling what Trump had done. So you look at what he's doing behind the speech. And I knew by then what they were going to try to do would be a disaster.
And now we can read about your perspective in terms of actually
What do
rolling it
we
back.
do to fix the country once we win?
Man, could you start with inflation? Anyway, we could do a whole hour together.
Yes.
And I'm so glad you were here. Congratulations on the new
It's
book.
great to be back in the studio.
Yes. And I'll see you soon, I hope.
Good.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.